Santa's under attack. Hi, I'm Twofold, and I usually have more than one perspective or answer. So I'm finally making a video about books. My other two were kind of videos about videos. I'm doing my last reads of 2020 and talking about all the series that I read, full series this year. So I went into December with 82 books out of a 100 book goal. Today, as of filming, I'm at 92. That still leaves 8 books for the end of the year. It's about a week. Maybe I can do it. I'm not sure. Here's what I'm working on so far. Atom Land is a travelogue through the world of particle physics, and it's been on my TBR since it came out, really. It looked so good and I wanted to read it, and I finally got it from the library. It's cute. It has these really cute maps that sort of help you visualize what the writer's talking about. He really knows his stuff. These two are by Octavia Butler. This is Imago. It's the last book of the Exogenesis series, so I'm still trying to finish that series. And then Clay's Arc, it looks like maybe they're connected, but it's not considered a part of the series. Sons of Cain by Peter Vronsky was recommended to me by a good friend. I could be into a book about serial killers. The Hogfather it's got a Santa-like figure on the cover, so I thought it'd be fun for Christmas, but it's really part of the death cycle in the Discworld. Maybe Terry Pratchett's take on A Christmas Carol, but I'm not that far into it. But it's Terry Pratchett. I love it. It's cute. And then my last paperback is The Shepherd's Crown, which is the final book of the Tiffany Cain series, and it's also the final book of the Discworld. I'm reading it with my partner, and we're doing the audiobook and the paperback, because sometimes it's nice to look at the page while you are reading. And then the other book that I'm working on right now is The Fates Divide by Veronica Roth. That is my audiobook. So assuming that I do finish The Fates Divide, Imago, and The Shepherd's Crown, I will have read 11 full series this year. I don't think I've put that much into it in the past. I don't think I've chased down a full series. I've just kind of read the books as they came out. But this year, I guess I was drawn to that. So here's just something quick about each series in no particular order. I guess I put my top 2 at the top. The Tiffany Cain cycle is 5 books in the Terry Pratchett Discworld that center on the character of Tiffany Cain. And she's even sort of a sub-cycle of the witches, because the character Granny Weatherwax appears as early as the 3rd Discworld book. I actually have all of these. I don't have hard copy of all these series. Some of them were audiobooks and some of them were library books, but I do have the Tiffany Cain. So the first book in the cycle was published in 2003, and it centers on the character of Tiffany Cain, who at all of 11 decides to rescue her little brother from fairyland using only a frying pan, and then discovers that she has some fairy folk allies known as the Wee Free Men. So here's these little guys. They're little blue, Scottish-ish pixies, and it's definitely a jab at other kind of fantasy treatment of flower fairies, cute flower fairies. So that's great. And then Tiffany just keeps going. Hat Full of Sky, she starts learning to become a witch. The Wintersmith, she's kind of a big deal in Witchland now, and she needs to learn a bit of humility. She takes on an avatar of the seasons, and hilarity ensues. I Shall Wear Midnight is the 4th book in the series. This one was published in 2010. The first time I read it, I was so bummed. It just was not as good as The Wintersmith to me, and it didn't feel like a really fitting end for Tiffany. I've since changed that. This year when we read it, it felt a little more relatable because Tiffany is sort of a social worker, and this book really felt like it wasn't about school, about how to be a social worker. It was like, Tiffany girl, you gotta do some self-care. So I liked it a lot better. It's still not my favorite, but I'm glad we read it because the final book, again, the final book of the Discworld centers around Tiffany aching. And I read it before, but I have no memory of it. I think I did that on purpose. I think I forgot so I could get it fresh again. There's some tears though, for sure. Terry Pratchett died in March of 2015 and it was published in August. So the grief was a little fresh for all of us who read it when it first came out. Now I'm reading it again with my partner Shlivechka and we are excited to finish it before New Year's. The Exogenesis series, if you haven't ever read Octavia Butler and you like sci-fi, you should give it a whirl. She's an amazing writer. There's a reason she's withstood the test of time. These books are from the 80s, 87, 88, and 89, I believe. I'm sorry it took me so long to read them, but now that I have, I'm just really glad, and I'll keep reading her work. She's got so much more to read. The Exogenesis series is about an alien species and some Earthlings learning to live together in the most intimate of ways, including blending DNA, and it's a really interesting conversation about cultural genocide. I'm excited for the last one. So the other series I haven't finished is The Fates Divide, but I have like 4 more hours left. I'm definitely gonna finish. I did like the Divergent series, but not as much as the Divergent book. So I had sort of put Veronica Roth on the back burner for a while because I was just like, they went downhill after book 1. She was so young. Maybe they pushed her to write those sequels too fast. Anyway, I'm really pleased with the disability representation in it. I'm interested to see where this last book is going because it seems like a really big task to finish up in half a book. If you haven't read The Bone Witch and you like high fantasy, you've got to read The Bone Witch. It's so amazing. I always am looking and interested in fantasy that's not based on Western religion or mythical monsters or mock Tolkienia or that sort of thing. I definitely am fascinated by fantasy from other places. The Bone Witch is written by Rin Chipeko, and she is definitely writing from an Asian mythology perspective. She's got the descriptions of geisha-like outfits and definitely has based some of the world around the geisha world, but they're like geisha warriors. Birthmarked by Kara M. O'Brien is an interesting trilogy about a dystopia where gender has become super important because of survival for the species. The book explores really 3 different spaces where conceiving children is different or difficult. And so gender now becomes something that really comes back to the roots of like how human beings further exist. And it's not perfect. It's definitely written for younger audiences. The first one I picked up when I was working in a high school and I was interested in reading what my students were interested in. It has a really fascinating approach to discussing gender and discussing how people just accept a privilege without thinking about it. So that's interesting. I bought the Binti sequels last year or the year before maybe, and this year I committed to reading them. So Binti by Nnedi Okorafor is Binti, beautiful cover, Binti Home, and Binti The Night Masquerade, which of course you can also get as the omnibus. It's not that much to lug around if you do. I just already had the novella and I wanted to get them as the separate series. Binti is maybe my favorite Afrofuturism ever. I think I'm not well read in that genre, so she could be surpassed at some point. But that novella just, it's a 90-page book, took me 90 minutes to read it, and it just captivated my heart forever. I read all 3 Freakonomics books this year. They're from a while now. The first one's from 2005, and then the last one's from 2014. I just wanted to. I learned things. The Curse Workers by Holly Black. I motored through all 3 books in 2 days as audiobooks because I was so bummed. I reread The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, which is just such a phenomenal vampire story, really. And I wanted more, and I didn't realize that that wasn't a series. So I dove head first and didn't come up for air till I finished. And then I sort of had a hangover, and I didn't read for a while after that. 6 of Crows I did as ebooks. I hadn't read them when they came out because they just were dauntingly big, but everyone who knows me told me they had really good disability representation, really good asexuality representation. I was excited and I was satisfied. I was pleased to read them. Okay, I read The Books of Fairy by Maggie Stiefvater, and maybe this shouldn't count because when I went to look up publication years, it looks like there's a 3rd one coming out. I don't know why. The first 2, they're loosely connected. They are just not Maggie Stiefvater's best work. If you like Maggie Stiefvater, sure, but they're more like Shiver than the Raven Cycle. Starflight. I just found this duology while I was searching through my library offerings. They're so cute. Dare I say Dickensian in space. Certainly the second one, Starfall, is definitely like Great Expectations in space plus mobsters and space pirates. The first one has that very Dickensian graphic expression of class differences and space pirates and corporate warfare. If you like space, check them out. So that's all the series I finished or am trying to finish this year. My next video is going to be the launch of the 2021 African Author Challenge, so stay tuned. See ya!